So, you say that's sad, but you know what's sad?
That we saw Madam Web.
That I saw Madam Web twice.
Ooh.
In the span of like 48 hours, I saw
weekend.
Madam Web twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw it with Isabel on Friday.
And so with me, whatever.
I saw it with you Sunday night.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, did I have a time of my life.
We had a time.
We had a time. Good or bad, we will figure it out together.
Who played Elektra in Elektra?
Oh, Jennifer Garner.
I feel like I never saw Elektra.
I feel like we owe her an apology.
But I think like Dakota Johnson was trashing, or not trashing. I feel like she was channeling some of that energy. Here's what I'll say. I don't hate Dakota Johnson. And I loved her SNL performance a few weeks ago. I might be trashing her a lot this episode, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right,
I'll try to be fair.
Here's my hot take.
Yeah.
It's not even a hot take. Dakota Johnson is not good enough of an actor to be shitting on this movie as much as she is.
No, I don't think she's I don't think she's a.
She is not above this movie. She is acting like she's above this movie.
She's not.
She is not. I'm sorry. I've seen her in a variety of movies. And you know what the saddest thing is? For the longest time, for the longest time, I thought Dakota Johnson was in Christmas Lesbians as not Kristen Stewart.
Right.
And I was like, she's really good. I was wrong. Yeah. I owe Mackenzie Davis a big apology.
Mackenzie Davis isn't Get Out? Or no?
No, that's somebody else. That's Allison Williams, I think.
Is Mackenzie Davis in anything?
Mackenzie Davis she's in The Martian.
Okay. A fine movie.
A fine movie. No, Mackenzie Davis is a good actress. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
She's in I don't want to go too deep into her thing. She was in a TV show that was very well received. So like I know she is a good actress.
Right.
Mackenzie Davis. Yeah. But she looks similar. She was in Blade Runner. She was in Tully. She was in a bad movie called The Turning, which is an adaptation of Turning of the Screw.
Yeah. The one that came out the same year that what's it called came out.
Spooky Lesbians came out. Yeah. But yeah, she is a good actress, and the fact that I even remotely gave Dakota Johnson some clout and some credit for her,
take that back.
I take that shit back.
I don't even think it's like a nepo baby thing.
She's just a bad actress.
Yeah,
and that's just it. Here's the thing: the most claim to fame that Dakota Johnson ever had was not because of who her parents were, was because she was in fucking 50 Shades.
Right.
And whether or not she got that role because she is a nepo baby, I don't know. But that's what gave her, I think, her claim to fame.
So I've never seen 50 Shades. I've never read 50 Shades. But I feel like, just from the little I know, that movie and this movie are both asking for a Dakota Johnson type actress. In many ways. Dakota Johnson was the perfect choice for Cassandra Webb in this movie. Because
in this movie, yes, because this movie's bad.
I don't think the writing of this character... what's the opposite of did her any favors? I don't think the writing of this movie was that far off from the caliber of actor that was asked to play in it. It's not like there's got to be a movie where where you see someone doing hating. No, I don't even know. There's got to be a movie. I'm not gonna praise Hayden Christensen. There's got to be a movie where you're like, this actor is doing a fine job. The script is just shit. I feel
everything in this movie.
Yeah, a movable force ran into a stoppable object.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this movie is a fucking disaster. This movie does not even deserve a no spoilers section.
No.
Let's just get into it. All right. So from the very beginning, you have this very pregnant woman, like in a very bad looking fake jungle.
Yeah.
Just being a bitch to a dude. And I know he's the bad guy. And like part of me goes, yes, you should be mean to this asshole.
Right.
But At this point, we don't know that.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't know that unless you tell them.
Yeah.
She is being so mean to this dude who is just like, hey, maybe you should take it easy because, you're like 20 months pregnant.
Right.
Slow down.
Right.
The spider will be here.
Right.
They talk about these, like, arañas, and she's like, that sounds fucking ridiculous. But then you're also here looking for a spider that will hopefully heal
the disease.
The disease is this rare disease. So, like, you're telling me that that's far-fetched, but this weird miracle cure is not far-fetched?
Yeah, I don't know.
So, like, that already doesn't jive.
So, wait. Back up. Not even back up. Aside. Is Peter Parker and Araña based on...
I don't fucking know!
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously, he's not from the Amazon, but, like, our Araña is basically just Spider-Man.
I guess?
Yeah. I don't know the lore.
This movie doesn't know the lore either.
Okay.
I don't know if there is anything in the comics that would be like this.
Yeah.
But this movie does not deserve to make any new lore if it is trying.
Right.
So this is like taking place in the 70s. And I think the reason for that is they wanted to connect it to one of the newer Spider-Man movies, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the Andrew Garfield, whether it's the
Tom
Holland movies. I don't know which one of those lines up best. Maybe no, none of them do.
If the kid is born in 2003,
because Peter Parker is, I think, a freshman or sophomore in high school. In Homecoming.
Okay.
Homecoming is 2016, and it's pretty modern day 2016.
So Homecoming, if he was a freshman in high school, the baby was born in 2002. I mean, it's Tom Holland-ish. It would be off. It would definitely be off, but like Tom Holland-ish.
Ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But there is no reference to that, aside from the name of a few people in this movie.
Right.
And I know that like rights and all that stuff and like licensing law is weird.
Yeah.
But this movie just complicates itself too much.
I'm walking into each of these Sony projects with no interest or expectation that it'll tie into anything. Because I mean, it's very apparent to me from Venom. Which Venom was it that did the first? Was it Venom 1 or Venom 2?
Which one?
That did the first, that had the Tom Holland.
That was 2. It was the 2. End of 2.
Okay. It's very apparent to me that they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and like hoping something sticks, but not even in a normal MCU way where they build characters. They're just like, take imagery.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
I don't know, man.
I mean, if they ever make something if they ever make something click with something else that already exists, it's not going to make plot-wise any sense. And that's fine. But like, I walk into movies like Madam Web being like, I know it's going to try to like tease like a new universe, but very much like The Winds of Winter. Like, it's just not coming.
It's not coming.
Yeah.
I think the movie also doesn't need to start in the jungle like 30 years ago.
Right.
I feel because later in the movie we go back to this, and it still doesn't necessarily make sense. But this movie could start in 2003 and kind of get you more invested in Cassie's story.
Yeah.
But having like 5 minutes of following a woman who does almost nothing.
Right.
And just to see a really bad-looking CGI spider.
Yeah.
That ain't doing it for me. And then also, like, the visual effects of having these arañas people, like, super, like, Twilight carry her into, like, a cave. You're starting yourself off on a bad, goofy note.
Bad note, yeah.
It's so bad. Dude.
Do you fully understand what her powers are by the end of the movie?
No!
Like, she just has the spider sense.
Not even spider sense.
I feel like it's like...
She has like premonitions and like in the comics she is supposed to be like clairvoyant.
Yeah.
She can astral project, which we do see both of those things here.
Right.
But in like what she's more or less doing, it's almost like she's because like astral projection is just like your spirit leaves your body.
In the movies, why is she even billed as a spider adjacent hero?
Why is she?
Yeah.
In this movie?
No, in the comics. Excuse me.
She gets involved with Peter,
Okay.
but like there's no relation, I believe. I'm not well versed in like
The character.
in the actual character of Madame Web.
Yeah.
But all I know is like she is just someone who happens to exist. She has like the name Madame Web.
Right.
But as far as like being a spider person,
Yeah.
the same way that like Peter and all the other like we got bit by a spider, I think it's separate.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
I know that eventually they like tie her in to be like someone who watches like the Web of Life or something like that. I can't remember what it was called.
Like a fate.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But this it has nothing to do with what they're doing here.
Right.
Right. We're introduced to Ben Parker, who I think is played well by Adam Scott.
He's fine.
Adam Scott's fine.
I just didn't need to see.
Another Uncle Ben.
I didn't need to see Ben Parker.
If they had said, "Hey, this is not Ben, but Richard Parker,"
Oh, Peter's dad.
Peter's dad.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, okay, but it feels almost like they're trying to be like, "Hey, look, it's Uncle Ben."
So it's interesting. Because there's no Aunt May in this movie, and because there's no Richard Parker in this movie, I know the movie never explicitly hinted at this, but it almost felt like Ben Parker was getting some Sally on the side.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. We have our 3 other Spider Women introduced in this movie,
But are they actually?
but they are not.
Yeah.
They are. All right, so we have Sydney Sweeney,
Yeah.
Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor, who are supposed to be different versions
teenagers.
of like a spider person,
Right.
right? And I believe all of them have different names from their comic book counterparts,
Okay.
or maybe it's just Sydney Sweeney, because I believe it's Julia Carpenter is the name of the character that she's supposed to be playing, but they changed her name to
Julia Cornwall.
Julia Cornwall for some reason.
Is Maddie Franklin the character from Spider-Verse? The
Who?
one. There's a spider. One of the spider people from Spider-Verse.
Oh no! I can't. That's Jessica something, I think,
Okay.
but it's not the same person.
But she also has a big afro and legs coming out her back.
She does.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it gets to a point where I'm like, why do they have to give her an afro?
Yeah.
It almost feels a little racist
Yeah.
to be like, black character has to have an afro.
Perhaps. I'm not gonna speak on this.
I don't know.
I
It
don't
seems
have the
weird.
expertise.
It seems weird.
But you know what else seems weird is in this age of Sydney Sweeney that we live in, I was seeing these previews, and I was like, oh, I didn't know much about this movie. I knew it was probably gonna be bad, but like I didn't know much about it. And I was like, why is Dakota Johnson simply getting the top, like, why is she being billed as like the top, like, role of this movie? Like, I know she's Madame Web, but like,
Of the casting in this movie, Sydney Sweeney's the one that I feel nowadays has the clout to be. Is that
she has the
what
biggest
you
clout.
mean, right?
Yes. And then I'm watching the trailers, and I'm like, at first I thought it was like I thought this was an ensemble movie, right? And then later on I learned that no, Dakota Johnson's Madame Web, not Sydney Sweeney. And then later on I learned that like, oh no, this is like Dakota Johnson's movie, like Sydney Sweeney, the secondary character. And I was like, oh, that's strange. Like you would think like Sydney Sweeney would be getting this role now because you know she's got the clout. And then I saw what happened, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
the better actors
And here's the
are
thing.
not just being sidelined. But
I think this movie was made a while, because this movie was supposed to come out a long time ago.
yeah,
And then they got caught in like
writer strike.
writer strike stuff.
Yeah.
I believe it was supposed to come out in 2023, maybe,
Okay.
or maybe even sooner than that.
Yeah.
But it's such a hot mess that no one in this movie comes out looking good.
No.
Maybe Mike Epps, because he dies early, so there's less damage to do to his character and his like clout as an actor.
Yeah.
But it's just so odd. Like they market this movie. every time you see the trailer and any snippet they do, it's them wearing their suits as like Spider Women, and you see
And it's Sydney Sweeney doing most of the talking.
it's Sydney Sweeney doing. It makes it seem like Sydney Sweeney is going to be like maybe your second lead.
Yeah.
Right? But no, they are in the movie for I mean a bit of the runtime, but then they are completely sidelined for half the movie. Like they don't do anything.
They are all damsels in distress.
Yeah.
Per Madam Web.
And also this movie goes its whole runtime without telling you how they even get their powers.
And there could be a universe in this movie where they don't get them at all.
It could, but then she says, "No, you do."
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's weird. Our main bad guy also then like his whole shtick is that he's trying to prevent these three women from killing him.
Right.
And we'll get back to the three girls because I have other things about that I'm thinking about.
I've got other things too.
So his whole thing is like, hey, I'm having all these visions.
Right.
These women are going to kill me.
Yeah.
I need CIA ladies or NSA lady password to like operate this whatever the hell machine from the Dark Knight is. And his assistant goes, "Oh, this is the sketches that you gave me from your dream."
Boop, boop, boop.
And it is their pictures.
Yeah.
It's not even like a picture sketch that looks like them, but it's a hand drawing. No, it is you took a fucking picture of these people. And then she goes, "Oh, here they are 10 years younger. Oh, they're teenagers."
Yeah.
And like, well, yeah, dude, what do you expect?
Right.
Like they look young in this picture of them. And it's such a weird.
What is the reason to make them teenagers in this movie? Because here's where I'll get to my chief point that I kept bringing up when we were watching it. But like, too much of this movie feels like the setup.
I think the reason why they may want to have made them teenagers is because deep down, if they thought there could be sequels, maybe they would make the sequels be present day, where they play more close to their age.
Who cares about logic in a Sony Marvel film?
Well, yes.
But like, so much of this movie feels like the setup to a bad porno.
It does.
Like, and I'm trying to think of like examples, but like the way people talk to each other, like the way like these girls are framed in shots. Like,
yeah. And I know it's supposed to be 2003, so like things were a little weird back then too.
S.J. Clarkson is a man or a woman?
Woman.
Director. Okay.
She's a woman.
Yeah.
But like the whole CPR scene, like Chekhov
So
CPR.
weird. Yeah.
It's
so much CPR in this movie.
It's weirdly like. It's weirdly framed.
It's weirdly framed.
It looks...
The amount of time that's spent on that shot is weird. The dancing scene at the restaurant.
That's also weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of choices being made in this movie that are just, it feels like they're just made because they're like, well, we want these girls to be dancing.
Yeah.
We want these girls to be pumping their arms up and down.
But not actually doing anything else.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also like, I feel like it takes away a lot of like their agency when they just get sidelined for a week.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that this guy is like hunting them down so frivolously, and you can just take a week break, go down to the Amazon, and everything's hunky dory.
But wait, it's just Dakota Johnson who goes down to the Amazon.
It's just her.
They're like in hiding in New Jersey. Like, I don't know where they actually are, but it's not that far away from
It's
here.
really not.
Like, it's the way this movie builds stakes is weird. This is completely unrelated, but I just remember to me the most frustrating thing about this movie. So her clairvoyance is her power, right? You effectively see scenes play out over and over again, and it is so boring.
Yeah.
And you're like, not only am I not having a good time, but I'm watching like 10% of this movie twice.
And it's not like and it's not like she's doing like trial and error.
No.
Like because like have you seen the movie Next?
I haven't.
With what's his name? Nicolas Cage.
I haven't, but I've seen Bandersnatch. Like I've seen things where I've seen things where things are replayed, right? And it's trial. It's trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't do that. This movie will play you one scene, and then the next scene, it's different.
Yeah.
Or they will play you like one scene over and over again in snippets, but she never takes any action in between those snippets.
No.
So it's just like you said, you're just rewatching the same scene play out, and then the ending is a little different.
And then to me, then the astral projection power came out of fucking nowhere. Like I knew nothing about this character. I was like, okay, eventually she's gonna learn how to use her like, this. The thing I took as an extended Spidey sense, because like Spidey sense, like you can kind of sense that things are happening. So like, okay, this bitch's power is that they're just like it's just like more attuned, where she can like see and replay the future, but she doesn't have any like the cool like web slinging like. I did like maybe I can climb on walls.
That was so fucking funny,
yeah,
dude.
I did like
the
that.
biggest laugh I think of the whole movie.
But then I'm taking that as okay, when is she gonna learn how to like actually use this power to be an advantage?
But it's also like you would maybe expect, logically speaking, you would expect that when she goes back to Peru to talk to these people, maybe they would teach her how to use her or how to hone.
Yeah.
But they don't.
No.
All they do is they say, hey, listen, when you accept your responsibility, you get some powers.
Oh.
The cringe. By the way,
Yeah.
so she saves these people. So she has her like thing where she's like seeing the past or the future, right?
Yeah.
And then the first couple of times she can't change anything, right? The first time it happens is after she drowns. Ben Parker takes her pressure and her oxygen levels, and she sees it twice.
Right.
And it's weird.
Right.
Then it happens again when she sees the dude.
Get hit by the truck.
No, sorry. The second time it happens is when they're at the baby shower,
Yeah.
which has like the funniest scene where she's like,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to turn in this blank paper and nothing's going to be awkward about it.
Why is she so unlikably awkward? Like I feel bad for all adopted people and foster kids in this movie, like in the world. Because this movie is like, oh, she's fucking weird as shit because she's a foster kid. And I'm like, I know it's hard life and they can be a little weird, but like her unapologetic weirdness is just so.
Her performance almost comes off as like Spectrum-y.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to.
And it's not like Christian Bale's character in The Big Short, where at least like his like weird neurodivergence, makes him a billionaire stock investor.
She's just a fucking EMT
Yeah.
who's just kind of rude and weird.
Yeah.
The fucking kid comes up to her and she's like, hey, thank you for saving my mom. And she's like, okay, kid.
Which, like, that type of person, if you're that socially awkward around people, I feel like you would not become an EMT.
No, because that takes a certain level of like.
And it does not pay well.
It does not.
EMT people are like, they get shit money.
You wouldn't know that if you looked at her apartment.
No. Or her wardrobe.
Or her wardrobe.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice to have her be so awkward and weird about everything.
Yeah.
And it really plays in like the way she delivers these like news to the girls, where she's like, come on, get up, you're about to die.
Yeah.
And people, they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We do have very few action sequences. I do like the quote unquote fight in the subway where Ezekiel shows up with his suit. I don't hate his suit, but I think him having a suit negates the choice that the character in the comics does of like not wearing shoes. Because like in the comics, he doesn't wear shoes because he needs to be able to stick to the walls.
Yeah.
He does not have a suit that allows him to do that, so he just does not wear shoes and he can use his hands.
Right.
Right? But in the movie, he gets a suit.
Yeah.
And I think it's a way for them to be like, look, he looks like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Come watch movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I do like the confrontation that he has with the cops. I feel like it does kind of make him feel a little scary because he just like, they're trying to run and he just like bonks into a police officer. And, it does kind of make him a little threatening, but not enough.
I like that this movie, there's no huge existential threat in the villain. Like there is, I think saying that there's a good movie in here gives this film way too much credit. I think there's a couple bones of a good movie in here where it's like, okay, a villain who has just very personal reasons to want to do some harm to some people, and like we got to stop him. But there's no like the city's not in danger, like the world is not in danger. There's no big alien like threat. I'm like, okay, I can
It's a
get
very
behind
personal
I can
story.
get behind a version of that. All the other surrounding pieces obviously falter, but I'm like, I can appreciate the direction that that could go. So as a villain, I don't hate the character. On the flip side of what I just said, though, like other than the fact that this guy just wants to kill the people who are going to kill him, if I'm not mistaken, you don't really figure out what this dude does.
No,
Yeah.
it's so like generic. He's just like, I have fancy apartment,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And he says he built something from nothing, and that these girls are not going to take it away from him.
Right.
But then also, like,
What do you do?
What does he do? Why do they want to kill him? Because you would assume if these girls are heroes,
Yeah.
they wouldn't just go in there for murder,
Yeah.
right? They would maybe arrest him. They would. They already took his spider, I think. They
Right.
show him like go to the spider thing and it's gone.
Yeah.
So what is there
What
to
is-
do? Why are they trying to kill this
In
guy?
the year where I saw Argyle, and I was like, oh, I have no fucking clue what Bryan Cranston actually does in this, like as a villain in this movie. I didn't think I would get a more underdeveloped villain in cinema
Dude,
that year, this year, but I was wrong.
It's nonsensical. And then also, I know we're not the only people who've said this. This is all over the place.
Yeah.
Why are all of his lines ADR'd? Like, very
Yeah.
few times do you actually look at him and it sounds like he's saying what he's saying.
Because there's also nothing so important that he says, or nothing so distinct that it felt like it needed an extra take to do
Yeah.
something. I have no clue.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they wanted. Maybe when he said something, it just didn't sound as threatening. Or it could also be the fact that there's apparently a rumor that this movie was almost entirely rewritten. Because
Yeah.
I guess the point of the movie was he was supposed to come back to kill Peter,
Okay, the baby.
the baby,
Yeah.
and then the girls just happened to be involved in something, and they would have to stop. Maybe they would get their powers, and then they would stop him.
That's so interesting. And now I really do want to know, what does Sony want to do slash realistically thinks it's going to do with a live action Spider-Man character?
I don't know.
Because this has been teased for a while now that they want to do something with Spider-Man. We don't know what Spider-Man. We don't know like a new Spider-Man, an old
Oh, I
Spider-Man.
see what you mean.
But like, if that's the case, if that was the movie, then clearly like this film is trying to, this film is trying to have some sort of influence on some sort of Spider-Man story.
Uh-huh.
What does this studio actually want to do with the Spider-Man movie?
I mean, more than anything, retain rights.
I guess, but like, there's no actual.
No, there's no need. There's no
Vision.
reason.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing that is very frustrating. You could, in theory, make a standalone movie based on one of these side characters, and it can work.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain extent, I think Venom is proof of that. It's not. They're not great. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not amazing movies, but they are serviceable. They are kind of fun. I think it suffers from lack of originality because it's just like we have symbiote fight symbiote.
I do think the Venom movies do suffer from a lack of Spider-Man. I agree. I think
A
this is
bit.
their ceiling so far.
But that's the
But it's-
thing.
yeah.
You could do something interesting,
Yeah.
but they just don't. They don't have like a vision of anything outside of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
which is it's their fault. It's their problem, and they need to work on that.
Right.
Like, I know it sounds dumb to be like, you have this Spider-Man property, do something with a side character, but unfortunately, they signed a deal with Marvel, and they said like, hey, you can use Spider-Man, and we can't for now because we're still making money off of this. But now the problem is they have no idea what to do with these side characters.
Could they do a live action Miles Morales Spider-Man?
I think so, but I think the nature of Miles
Spider-Verse.
Morales requires almost a
Peter Parker. Yeah.
and I don't know necessarily like to what extent.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
But then the nature of Venom requires a Peter.
Kind of. Well, because like there are a lot of side stories with Venom post Peter encounter.
Yeah.
Where it just follows Venom doing shit. Like Agent Venom is a cool storyline where he just becomes like a government agent who goes and takes care of shit. And so like why not do that?
Yeah.
I kind of hope that's what they go with on the third movie, but apparently it's not. They're going to have him go and protect baby Peter.
Oof.
And I'm like, why?
For what purpose?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And everybody who's like hearing these rumors are like, please don't.
Yeah.
Like, just do something else.
Yeah.
You don't need this happening right now.
No.
By the way, I love the choice in this movie that she steals a taxi.
Oh yeah,
we
totally. Talked about
this. We talked about this. She steals a taxi, and then she just like, this is her thing now.
Yeah.
This is the Madame Webmobile.
Drive around in a taxi without plates.
Without plates, being totally like suspicious about it.
For longer than she needs to.
At least over a week.
Yeah.
Because she goes to Peru, leaves with a taxi, and comes back with the taxi.
Yeah.
And then she steals an ambulance. Yeah. Madame Web's like, she's a car thief.
She's a car thief.
But before that, so she hears on the radio that they're like, oh yeah, you know, we've also like identified a woman with the girls in her 30s.
Yeah.
But they never said that like they specifically ID'd the woman. They never said it's EMT Cassie Webb.
Right.
They just said we know there is a woman with these 3 girls.
Yeah.
If you find a woman who's in her 30s and she does not have 3 girls, you're off the hook, I think.
Yeah.
There is really no reason for her to be like in hiding. The girls, I can see why.
The way though the way this movie escalated though to contrive the fact that people would think that she was kidnapping them is so bizarre to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget exactly how it happens. I think one of them yells something.
Yes, Julia yells, like, this woman's trying to kidnap us. But then they get their ass beat by not this woman.
But this could have been resolved within the next 15 minutes.
You go to the cops and say, hey, she is not kidnapping us. There is a man who just beat the shit out of all the cops in the subway.
But then here's the other thing. All 3 of them at this point in the movie have no contact with their parents, right?
No, they're all like, we're abandoned. My dad's been deported.
So who is here to even continue on this search?
Yeah, I don't know who. I'm assuming if Ezekiel is as strong as a Spider-Man type of character, all these people probably have enough brain damage that they forgot this girl yelled, she's trying to kidnap us. I don't know.
Because in an actual kidnapping, right? Like the parents are the ones who are like, bring my child home. Like Amber Alert's doing news conferences, but like there's no one on their behalf.
No, no one should be. At least the way they describe it, like nobody would be looking for them if their description of their family is accurate.
Which then is also bonkers to me. That they wanted to shoehorn this like mother-daughter role with Dakota Johnson, these girls, so hard that they made it where all 3 of these girls are just like abandoned and no one knows the why. They're going to school. They're in an apartment.
By the way, all right, one of the things that I think the worst in this movie is just how little faith they have in the audience watching this movie. Because they have these girls like and Cassie like have this power where she's like seeing things, but they're constantly like monologuing to you as the audience. And they're constantly like explaining everything that's happening. And you're like, you can't just let the characters or the audience like piece things together. Right. One of the worst examples of this is when she's talking to the cat. Because
she also doesn't really strike me as a crazy cat lady. Like, she's weird.
She's weird. She's a little eccentric.
But isn't that really the only major scene with the cat?
Well, there's also maybe it's not the cat too, but it's also the scene with the bird
Mm,
where she gets a phone call from Ben,
yeah.
and she goes, "Hey, Cassie, it's me, Ben Parker.
Right.
You can't just be like, hey, Cassie, it's Ben. Come to the funeral."
Yeah.
They don't trust you. And then the bird smashes into the window. She breaks the popcorn thing, and then she goes up to the window. And instead of just showing her opening the window and us seeing the gears turning,
Right.
she has to go, well, it's not gonna change. The bird's still gonna die.
Yeah.
Well, like, you just don't tell us these things.
Just
Like,
do
just
it.
do it. The At the end where she's like kind of going back to the Amazon.
Yeah.
She goes to the Amazon and she has this vision of her mom going to the doctor to tell her that like something is wrong with the baby.
Right.
Because this whole movie, we are under the impression that, well, Cassie is under the impression that mom hated her and went to the Amazon for shits and giggles.
Which
20 months pregnant.
I never got. But I was like, but here, I will say, maybe in this movie's defense, I don't know. I will say at the beginning of this movie, I was like, why the fuck is this pregnant ass lady in the middle of the Amazon? And then it does come up with a reason. But I never got until that point that I was like, oh, those are your mommy issues? Like,
But that's also the problem. I think
Yeah.
I think if they had started this movie with Cassie and not given us that cold open with the mom in the Amazon,
yeah.
then it lets us kind of be under the impression of, well, maybe the mom is there for whatever reason and maybe not that important. And then later we are shown that scene, maybe not the whole scene, but like in snippets,
Yeah.
intercut with her going to the doctor and telling her like, by the way, your kid ain't gonna walk. She's got some neurological disease or whatever.
Yeah.
But then even then, the movie again doesn't trust the audience to be smart enough to piece these things together. Where she's like, oh, "You came back for me because I don't have a thing anymore."
Yeah.
So it's insulting.
It's a brain dead movie treating you like you're brain dead.
Yes.
I find spider adjacent properties the least interesting when a parent has backstory exploring and doing science stuff in the jungle. I don't know how essential that is to the Richard Parker character, but like, I mean, but even if it is, that whatever story they did to build the story of Peter's parents is just an expansion on that the fact that the core of his family is Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Like it's so I just don't need it, and I didn't need it with this. Like I don't need secret backstory from Adam Webb's mom. It's just not interesting.
It's not interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, so then she comes back, and right before she comes back, Mary goes into labor.
Yeah.
And Ben knows, hey, someone is looking for these girls. And guess what? You have been fine for a whole week.
Yeah.
No one's bothered you.
Yeah.
No one's coming knocking.
Yeah.
Leave the fucking girls at the house.
Yeah.
Why is
Why are they coming to the
everybody coming out? And granted, they don't know that they're using cameras. I will give them that.
Right.
They don't know that they're using cameras to track the faces of these girls.
But there's no reason to bring them.
But there's no reason. Be like, hey, girls, we're gonna leave. Stay here. Keep the lights off.
Yep.
We'll be back in a day, right?
Yeah.
They leave, and then they eventually get caught, which leads to Cassie stealing her second vehicle,
Right.
which is
The ambulance. Yeah.
Which I will say, in this movie's defense, a lot of people are like, you're like, oh shit, dude, Cassie's so mean. She's just stealing a random ambulance. What if somebody needs it? They're like, no, this is the ambulance that was supposed to go to the house to pick up Mary.
Yeah.
No one needs this ambulance. This ambulance is taken. It's spoken for.
Yeah.
Take it.
It's spoken for.
It's spoken for. It doesn't. It's not. You're not hurting anyone. But then, you know how it says that he has all the powers of the spiders, of las arañas. Which, by the way, when she goes las arañas, she says it so condescendingly.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me. But she like yeets this ambulance, which is like in a multi-story parking garage, and she just perfectly angles it so where it's going to go like right by him. But he jumps into it. So does he or does he not have a spidey sense?
I don't know.
Because he's able to dodge bullets. So that tells me he
got
has Spidey
something.
sense.
He's got
But
something.
he jumps into the ambulance.
He's definitely a nerfed Spider-Man, which then also just then makes this movie less interesting because you're like, not only am I not watching Spider-Man, not only am I not watching Sydney Sweeney with spider powers, I'm watching Dakota Johnson fight clearly lesser
Spider-Man with a car.
with a car.
And so then we go back to the first place where the friend cop dies.
Yeah.
And it's a Pepsi company factory. Why are there explosives in the Pepsi factory?
Was it a Pepsi factory?
There's a giant sign that says Pepsi Cola.
I know that there's a giant sign. I just took that as the Pepsi rented that space and just put their thing on.
I don't know, dude.
I don't know that. I didn't know that it was a Pepsi factory.
I mean, I don't know,
but I mean, clearly there's. I said in our episode on Lisa Frankenstein that this movie feels like it was filmed in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
The first product placement where you see of someone drinking from a Pepsi can, I think it's at the barbecue.
She gets a Pepsi.
Felt like such a 2003 movie and like early 2000s product placement. It was bad.
It's bad. She's holding the can like perfectly straight at the camera, and she's holding it like this. I'm holding it like between my fingers.
Yeah.
She's not just like grabbing it.
No, she's posing for an ad.
She is posing for the camera with this thing.
It is like Wayne's World level bad.
Yeah.
I think this movie. So I forget with one of our most recent episodes, with the fact that we're only getting one MCU thing this year, and it is Deadpool. So MCU, but also like it's special, right?
Yes.
I am growing more confident that this year will be a very good thing for like the MCU going forward. Because people be talking how like new Marvel movies are shit, and they're flawed, right? We've had some bad things to say about some of the recent ones. I think a lot of people have forgotten as to how bad
Things can
superheroes, not just things that get, were.
Yeah.
Like this was common fare.
Yeah. This definitely has big.
This was
Daredevil, Elektra vibes, for sure.
Yeah.
Big, Ang Lee, Hulk vibes.
Right, and even if, and here, I love the Marvels, right? Even if you're one of those people who like hates that movie, I don't think you could watch that and watch this. And I'm not just saying like the bar is that low to compare, but I'm like, okay, the Marvels has a coherent plot.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't just make blatant mistakes over and over again, whereas this movie does.
Yeah.
So I am excited for some good superhero content in 2025.
So this movie, I think, honestly for me, the worst part of this movie is really that last sequence of this movie where they're in this factory. So kind of to go back a little bit to it, because this is where we see kind of everything culminate to what Madam Web is kind of supposed to be.
Right.
Because she's using her powers, which I will say is kind of, I don't want to say it's cool, but it's better.
Yeah.
Where she's like, hey, like, stay here for a second, and you see like explosion and then shards of metal hit where the person, right? An explosion coming up from underneath them. Something falling over or whatever. So that is it's kind of cool to see her actually using her powers in practice. Yeah. But then everything starts to go down. Ezekiel shows up. He gets killed by like the Pepsi sign, which is kind of hilarious as a product placement thing to be like, this is the thing that's gonna kill your villain. She falls into the water, which then kind of gives us our Chekhov's CPR.
Yes.
Right? But then as she's falling in the water, she gets nailed in the face with a firework.
Yeah.
Which blinds her. But then for some reason, she is now also wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing her get hit by anything else that would imply that she is now on a wheelchair.
So, as someone who knew very little about this character, the only thing, and maybe I'm making this up, the comic book character is blind, yes?
Yes.
Are they also wheelchair bound?
Yes.
Okay. when I knew of Madam Web, when I heard of Madam Web, I was like, I think it's kind of like the Oracle character from DC.
Kind of.
And then I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, oh, maybe I was wrong. I don't see anybody blind or in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And then it happens at the end.
Mm-hmm.
The movie would have to be drastically different. But wouldn't the movie just be better if you blinded her early on and then
Yes.
went from there?
Yeah. I think it would too.
Yeah.
Have her be blind. Maybe something happens in that beginning thing where she's in the car and she falls down or whatever. Maybe that blinds her, and then everything is black, and then suddenly she gets visions and whatever, right?
Maybe her first vision, instead of her coworker dying by getting hit by the car crash, she's seeing that it's going to happen to herself.
Something like that.
It writes itself.
It's there. Here's the problem with this movie.
Yeah.
The main problem is that this movie, not only is it unnecessary, it is written by the same people who made not only Morbius, but Gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
They made, what was the other one? Hold on. It's three people.
It's quite the pedigree.
It is quite. Gods of Egypt, Morbius, The Last Witch Hunter, Dracula Untold.
Ooh. But
they did make the Power Rangers 2017, which I kind of enjoyed.
You kind of enjoy.
I
haven't met anybody else. I haven't seen it, but I haven't met anybody else who kind of enjoys it. But like, isn't this just proof that Sony is not?
They're not bringing their best.
I don't even think that's the. I don't even think they're bringing anything. I think they're just like churning out content, and they literally like do not care as to how good or bad it is at all.
And like I said, I don't know if this is a product of they just need to crank shit out for the licensing to stay with them.
Yeah.
But you would think that because they have a deal with Marvel, they would then count that as their marketing or as their like making a movie and a production thing.
Right.
They also just had Spider-Verse come out.
Yeah.
So why?
There's your IP.
There's your IP. Why do you need to be making these movies? And also, if you're going to be making them, why make them bad?
Right.
Because not only are they mad, because like you could say like, oh, maybe they're making the movies because they have to, but they're at least making money. But they're not.
Yeah.
Like they are not turning a profit on these movies. Granted, this movie is doing okay.
Did Morbius end up turning a profit because of the memes?
No, dude. If anything, they lost money because of that. Because then they redistributed the movie, and then it just kind of tanked again.
Right.
Which was just really fucking funny. Yeah. I think I asked this in the chat the other day with our friends. Given Morbius, given Madam Web, if Kraven the Hunter is another bad movie, is this the time for Disney and Marvel to make their move and try to buy out Sony? Not Sony necessarily,
but the Spider-Man
but get back the rights. Because there is something to the fact that I don't know if you watched the latest Screen Crush video, but they were talking about how, and I have heard, especially a lot of my coworkers at work who are not, perpetually online like we are, and like super into like the movie space, who are like, hey, it's another Marvel movie.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of people who think this is
MCU, and to the point where even the actresses thought this was MCU.
Yeah,
because there was a whole controversy where like a week after the trailer dropped, Dakota Johnson fired her agency, her representation. When they announced the casting for the movie, all four actresses, Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Isabel Merced, and Celeste O'Connor, they were all like happy to be in Marvel Studios, and they fucking tagged them in their thing. Wow. And they were forced to delete it because it's not Marvel Studios.
Wow.
So this is getting to the point where like I think Disney and Marvel Studios could argue
this is a brand issue. Yeah.
This is a brand issue. They Sony could very well be saying, "Hey, you want to join Marvel?"
Yeah. That's
And people go, "Yeah, MCU," and you go, "Yeah, sure."
That's some shady shit.
So
Right.
you could make the argument that this is now hurting Marvel brand,
Yeah.
like big Marvel brand.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know the legality of these things, but if I join a project and I say, "Hey, I'm joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe,"
Right.
and then you learn after you sign the legally binding contract that no, just kidding, you are in the adjacent
Sony, yeah.
one.
Right.
Because like I'm assuming if someone tells you, "Hey, you're playing Spider-Woman,"
Dude, I would fire my agency too, though. Like, I mean, here I don't expect. I don't expect the actors to always be able to tell the difference, right? But like your agency should know, like, hey, this is Sony calling you, right? This is not. This is not coming from the mouse.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like it could very well be like, "Hey, we would like to offer your actress a role in a Marvel movie,"
Yeah.
and you go, "What? Hell yeah!"
Somewhat-
What is it? She's gonna be playing Spider-Girl in a Spider-Man related movie.
Yeah.
Fuck me up. Why? Because Spider-Man has been in the Marvel movies.
Right. Right. But
Right?
yeah, but an agent I feel like should be able to be able to know.
Should.
Yeah.
But it's getting to the point where I think it's time for Disney
To make it
to make its move. In the past, you could say, well, maybe Sony knows what they have in Spider-Man, which clearly they do.
Right.
But at the same time, like you can't justify the amount of money that they are spending as a studio
Yes.
to then flop and flop and flop and flop.
I think this is where the fact that people aren't going to theaters as much as they used to is doing us some favors for getting some of these shitty ass movies out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I can see a world where this movie makes a good chunk of money, and then you have critics who are like, "Why are you going to go see this and support bad art?" This is one of the first times I'm saying, thank God people are just not going to theaters as much in general, because like even though the memes are fun, right? The jokes are fun, right? These are just a waste of time.
For sure.
Honestly, yeah.
It is. It's one of the movies. This is very clearly in my list
For one of the worst.
One of the worst. I can't imagine anything
being that much worse.
Worse.
Yeah, you can't imagine 10 other things.
No.
Yeah.
No, there's no way this is not going to be on my list.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way this is not on my list.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's a little crazy to me that people have the balls to like watch this movie and then expect someone to like say something nice about it.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know if you saw the big drama happening with Chris Stuckman.
Well, he didn't want to.
He didn't want to bash the movie apparently, and people took offense to that. And I kind of get his point.
Right.
But there is something about film criticism where you do have to be honest and say it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a bad movie. The script is garbage. The directing is not good. The cinematography is bad.
Yeah.
Things are bad.
Right.
And I think if you want to be respectable as a critic, you have to be able to say positive things and negative things about movies that deserve it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like it's not like if your shtick is to be negative about movies, like fine, like you can kind of cherry pick.
This movie isn't even like woke though.
No.
Yeah. And granted, that whole crowd also doesn't like this movie.
No.
Like, this movie is disliked by everybody. But like there are people who just shit on movies for political reasons.
They do. And that's when you start to see things like with the Marvels, where they just start like throwing shit to throw shit. Where they're like, oh, the actresses are bad. And you're like, well, not really.
Yeah.
Right? In this movie, you could make a legitimate argument that this is a bad movie. And the people who created it, like, I'm sorry, you don't get this many strikes and say it's all the studio's fault.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know that's what he said. He's like, oh, I just made an indie movie, and I can't imagine how hard it must be to make a movie with a studio breathing down your back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is yes, maybe as a director you have some opinions, But if you're using a bad script from the get-go,
Right.
it's on you.
Right. Especially when you haven't heard this conversation come up as much this year, maybe even last year. But the fact of the matter is that Hollywood is a finite space, meaning like there are people who get breaks and there are people who don't get breaks.
Yeah.
Right. This is money, resources, roles that could have gone to something else. Right.
Yeah.
We saw a couple episodes ago. We did what's it called? Into Darkness.
Out of Darkness.
Out of Darkness. Right. A movie that during your episode we're like, I said I'm so happy for these actors because of how much this was delayed. Like, if I was in this movie, I would have never thought this movie would see the light of day, right? And like, obviously these shitty movies are still going to be made, but like, when it's chronic and when you're hiring the same writers, right? I could see the sympathy if this was like Venom 2, right? If this came out this early in the cycle. But at this point, it's to the point where I don't even want to do an episode on Kraven the Hunter because, like, I don't know what else am I like.
Yeah.
What else is there to say, right? That hasn't been said already.
I'm still gonna see it. I'm hoping that it's something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the bar is low.
The bar is low, but I feel like if the studio knew that the movie was absolute shit,
Yeah.
then maybe releasing it during a strike would probably be their best bet.
Right.
Because we're gonna fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing: people are like people are saying that like maybe S.J. Clarkson was like, kind of taken advantage of as a director. But at the same time, like I don't believe that necessarily as much because she still has like not great things on her resume.
Yeah.
Like she's got some okay stuff, but it's mostly TV series. And TV series, I feel like you can have a bad director come into a TV series and direct an okay episode.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because like you're working with already established characters. You're working with already established like
You're working under the direction of a showrunner.
Right. The actors already have a good sense of what their characters might be like.
Yeah.
So it's honestly, I feel like when you tell me that someone is directing an episode and it's a great episode, I feel less inclined to give the director super credit. I still do, but I feel like it's more of a culmination of things.
Yes.
Where I feel like she's directing this movie and she looks at the script and she could just very well be like, well,
I don't think there's any victims in the story, including the audience. We knew what we were getting into.
We knew what we were getting into.
Yeah, maybe not to this extent, but we knew what we were getting into. It's February. It's a Sony Marvel movie.
It's shocking how bad this movie.
Right.
And also, why release it on Valentine's Day?
Strange.
I feel like this movie does not.
Not Valentine's Day vibes.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did any rom-coms come out this Valentine's Day?
No, I think the only thing that kind of got a bit of an uptick was Anyone But You.
But that was already
out.
Yeah.
It's been out for 2 months.
Come on.
Bob Marley came out on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I've heard it's okay.
It's called One Love.
One Love. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go see something better. Honestly, don't waste your time on this. This is the most like numb I felt talking about a movie. I love watching movies and I love talking about movies, but I feel like this movie just kind of fried me a bit.
Yeah, this is
Because all right, Morbius was bad.
Right.
But I feel like Morbius
was haha bad.
Morbius was haha bad.
Right.
There, fucking Matt Smith was having a blast in that movie being a weirdo.
Yeah.
It's always fun to see, at least to me, fun to see Jared Leto be a weirdo.
Uh-huh.
So that I can kind of vibe with. This movie.
This was not haha bad.
This movie was not haha. This movie was just bad. The best thing about this movie, honestly, has been the pictures coming out of the red carpet events.
I haven't seen any.
You haven't seen any,
not
dude?
seen any.
I will show you. I will show you some photos.
I think there's always many ideas I have for series or episodes of the show. I would love to be able to do a talk one day on just categorizing different types of bad movies and then sorting movies into those different types.
Like putting something as haha bad, and something putting as like
The
not
so bad it's good.
so bad.
The
It's
so
good.
bad it's good, but then so bad it's good, and then went back to bad. I think because there's many bad movies that we've enjoyed,
Yeah.
and this is not.
I feel like I haven't been this down on the movie since Crimes of the Future.
But that was even a different type of bad.
It was a different type of bad.
Yeah.
This so when you say haha bad, there is something that I laugh at this movie, but it's not like I'm having a good time laughing at.
It's not The
movie.
Room. I think
It's not The Room.
The Room is pinnacle. Haha bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will just end by kind of going back with I still can't believe the audacity of Dakota Johnson to pretend like she's better.
No, and like I said, I feel bad because I don't hate. I mean, hate is still a strong word. I think that she could. I think that there's a decent actress in there, but like on the big screen, I just have not seen any evidence.
Maybe now that she fired her agents,
Yeah.
maybe they can do something. Maybe they can do to her what they did with Kristen Stewart.
Maybe
Because Kristen Stewart,
a similar boat.
similar boat where she was in some movies, and granted the movie themselves were not great, but now she has found like
She's
found her
lane.
stride,
Yeah.
right? She is good in a lot of the movies that she's been.
Yeah.
Where I feel like Dakota Johnson has not hit that quite yet.
No.
All right, everybody. Well, sorry about this. Maybe don't share this one with your friends.
As The Offspring once told us, it is cool to hate.
It is cool to hate.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Until next time, he has been Fano.
He has been Javier.
And this has been the Cine-Scoots movie show.
Bye.
Bye. God damn.